Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. Liam Harper thought his 30-acre woodland retreat was a sanctuary, a family legacy untouched by time. But when he returned after a year away, what he found left him speechless. 5 luxury cottages with pools, fences, and a sign reading Blue Pines Retreat. His peaceful haven had become ground zero for a battle over justice and ownership. Liam Harper leaned back in his car seat as the winding road cut through a dense forest of towering pines. The late afternoon sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting flickering patterns on the hood of his truck. The air smelled of pine needles and damp earth, a stark contrast to the sterile urban air he had left behind. This was his escape, his inheritance, a sprawling 30-acre woodland that had been in his family for generations. His father had often spoken of the land with reverence, recounting tales of its natural beauty and the tranquil life it promised. It had been passed down from Liam's grandfather, who had lived out his final years tending to the property. For Liam, this was more than land. It was a connection to his roots, a place where he hoped to build his future away from the noise of city life. The property included a charming yet slightly dilapidated ranch-style house nestled near a bubbling stream. The house was surrounded by open meadows, clusters of wild flowers, and a forest that stretched far beyond what the eye could see. A small wooden bridge spanned the stream, leading to trails his grandfather had carved out decades ago. While the house needed repairs, Liam saw its potential and felt a growing excitement as he imagined breathing new life into it. Over the past year, however, life had taken him elsewhere. His demanding tech job in Seattle had kept him tethered to the city, and his visits to the property had been infrequent. Now, with a remote position allowing him more freedom, he decided it was time to settle here permanently. It felt like the right moment to embrace this peaceful retreat fully and restore it to its former glory. As he approached the house, the sight of its weathered exterior stirred mixed emotions. The cedar siding, once vibrant, had faded, and the roof bore the scars of countless seasons. Still, the structure stood strong, a testament to his grandfather's craftsmanship. He parked the truck and stepped out, inhaling the crisp air that felt worlds apart from his previous life. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Liam threw himself into the work of repairs, fixing the roof, repainting the walls, and bringing modern utilities into the rustic home. Each day brought a new sense of accomplishment as he began to feel truly at home. The land, too, seemed to welcome him back. The stream sparkled under the sun, birds sang in the trees, and deer occasionally wandered into view. But the land was vast, and Liam had only begun to explore its reaches. On his third week back, he decided to take a day to venture deeper into the property, past the meadow, and toward the distant tree line. He loaded his ATV with supplies, including a map of the property boundaries his father had once shown him. The document, marked with clear orange lines, outlined the extent of his family's land. As the ATV roared to life, Liam felt a surge of anticipation. This was his chance to reconnect with a place that had been a part of his family's legacy for decades. But what he would find beyond the tree line would soon turn his peaceful sanctuary into the setting of a battle for justice and ownership. Liam navigated the bumpy trails on his ATV, the cool forest air rushing past him. As he ventured deeper into the woods, the hum of the ATV faded into the natural symphony of rustling leaves and distant bird calls. The trees became denser, the terrain more rugged, and he felt a sense of adventure. For years, this part of the property had been untouched, a slice of wilderness that belonged entirely to his family. He stopped at a clearing near the property's eastern boundary, checking his map. The orange markers his grandfather had installed decades ago were still visible, though slightly faded. These markers had always been a clear indication of where their land ended and the outside world began. But something strange caught Liam's eye, a wooden post that didn't look like it belonged. Curious, he drove closer, and soon the trees gave way to a sight that made his stomach drop. In the middle of his land stood a modern 2-story cottage, complete with a freshly painted deck and a manicured lawn. A low fence surrounded the property, and a small sign near the gate read, "Blue Pines Retreat." His heart pounded as he processed what he was seeing. Who had built this? And why? His confusion deepened as he rode further along the boundary line. To his disbelief, he discovered not one but 5 cottages spread across the area. Each was neatly fenced in, with signs advertising them as part of a rental retreat. The cottages were complete with pools, patios, and even gravel parking spaces. Liam's land, his family's land, was now a bustling commercial property. As he tried to make sense of the scene, he noticed movement near one of the cottages. A young couple was lounging by the pool, laughing and enjoying themselves. Liam approached them cautiously, unsure of how to address the situation. "Excuse me," he called out, and the couple turned toward him. "Can I ask what you're doing here?" The man smiled, assuming Liam was part of the operation. "Oh, we rented this place for a long weekend. It's amazing, so peaceful and private. We found it on a vacation rental site." "Vacation rental site," Liam repeated, his voice tight. "Do you know who owns this place?" The woman shrugged. "We booked through someone named Karen. She handles the rentals. Lovely lady, very professional." Liam's mind raced. Karen, his neighbor down the road. He had met her briefly a year ago when she welcomed him back to the area. At the time, she seemed friendly, complimenting his property and expressing admiration for its beauty. But now it appeared that admiration had turned into something much more sinister. He asked for Karen's contact information, which the couple willingly provided. Taking a deep breath to calm his rising anger, Liam dialed the number. The line connected, and a cheerful voice answered. "This is Karen. Which cottage are you interested in?" Liam clenched his teeth, masking his frustration. "I'd like to discuss the cottages. Can we meet in a couple of days? I want to see them in more detail before I make any decisions." Karen agreed enthusiastically, setting a time for their meeting. As Liam hung up, his hands trembled, not with fear, but with determination. Over the next 2 days, Liam prepared for the confrontation. He contacted a local surveyor to verify his property lines and document the placement of the cottages. The results left no doubt. Every single building was on his land. Armed with these findings, he filed a report with the local authorities and hired a real estate attorney to draft a lawsuit. Karen's actions were not just a breach of property rights. They were a blatant attempt to capitalize on what didn't belong to her. The cottages, the fencing, the landscaping, all of it was unauthorized. Worse, the attorney estimated that the financial damages, including the cost of removing the structures and restoring the land, could exceed $1.5 million. As the day of their meeting approached, Liam steeled himself for the battle ahead. He knew he had the law on his side, but Karen's audacity suggested she wouldn't back down without a fight. This was no longer just about the cottages. It was about reclaiming his land and protecting his family's legacy. The day of the meeting arrived, and Liam drove out to the cottages, his heart pounding with a mixture of anger and anticipation. He wasn't coming alone. Accompanying him were a property inspector, a local sheriff's deputy, and his attorney. Armed with irrefutable evidence of the illegal construction, Liam was determined to confront Karen on her blatant trespass. The gravel road leading to the cottages had been freshly smoothed, a sign of Karen's investment in this unauthorized venture. As he approached the cluster of cottages, Liam saw Karen's sleek SUV parked near the largest one. She stepped out with a confident, almost smug expression, dressed in a tailored blazer that seemed to scream authority. Her expression faltered the moment she saw Liam standing with the officials. Recognition flashed across her face, and a flicker of unease replaced her earlier confidence. Liam had met Karen briefly a year ago during one of his rare visits. Back then, she had been all charm, gushing over the beauty of his land and expressing a deep admiration for its tranquility. Now, her role in this debacle was clear. "Liam," Karen called out, forcing a bright smile as she approached. "What a surprise. I wasn't expecting you to bring company." "I thought it was only fair," Liam replied coolly, "given what I've discovered about your little enterprise." Karen's smile froze, and she straightened her shoulders, trying to maintain her composure. "I'm not sure what you mean. Everything here is perfectly legitimate. I've invested a lot of time and money into making this place a retreat that people can enjoy." Liam motioned toward the sheriff's deputy, who handed Karen an official document. Her expression darkened as she skimmed the papers, her lips tightening with each line. "This is a formal notice," Liam explained. "You have 14 days to remove all structures from my property. Additionally, we've filed a lawsuit for damages exceeding $1.5 million. And," he added with deliberate emphasis, "the authorities are investigating this operation for potential tax evasion and illegal business activities." Karen's face flushed a deep red as she turned to the officials, her voice rising. "This is absurd. I have every right to this land. My husband and I bought it fair and square. I even have documentation to prove it." "Then you won't mind showing it to us," Liam's attorney interjected, his tone sharp. Karen rummaged through her handbag, producing a set of papers and thrusting them toward the attorney. As he examined them, his frown deepened. "These documents are highly suspect," he said after a moment. "They claim that Liam's father transferred ownership of this portion of the property to you before his passing. Conveniently, there's no record of this transaction in the county archives." Karen's voice grew shrill. "It's not my fault if the records were misplaced. This land is mine now, and I've done nothing wrong." Liam stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Karen, you've known all along this land wasn't yours. The survey markers were there. The records are clear. And yet, you built 5 cottages, advertised them, and started renting them out as if you owned the place. This isn't a misunderstanding, it's theft." Karen's composure cracked further. "You don't understand how much I've invested in this. Do you know how much money these cottages bring in? They're fully booked for the summer." "That's not my problem," Liam replied. "What you've done is illegal, and now you're going to face the consequences." The sheriff stepped forward, his voice steady. "Ma'am, you'll need to comply with this notice. Failure to do so will result in further legal action, including potential criminal charges." Karen's confident facade shattered entirely as she realized the weight of the situation. Her gaze darted from the documents in her hands to Liam's resolute expression. With a venomous glare, she spat, "This isn't over. I'll see you in court." Liam simply nodded. "That's exactly where this is headed." As Karen stormed back to her SUV, Liam felt a sense of vindication. This was far from over, but the first battle had been fought, and he had the upper hand. Liam had anticipated that Karen wouldn't back down easily, but he hadn't expected just how far she would go. A few days after their confrontation, his attorney notified him that Karen had officially filed a counterclaim. In her lawsuit, she accused Liam of defamation, harassment, and attempting to steal her lawfully acquired property. What surprised Liam even more was the court's acceptance of the suspicious documents Karen had provided, temporarily halting the removal of the cottages until the ownership dispute could be resolved. "It's a delay tactic," his attorney Emily explained during a late-night strategy session. "She knows those documents won't hold up under scrutiny, but by filing this counterclaim, she's buying time and putting pressure on you." The next few days proved Emily right. Karen began escalating her efforts to intimidate Liam. Passive-aggressive messages started showing up in his mailbox, and he noticed Karen's SUV idling on the road near his driveway more than once. Then one evening, she showed up at his door, accompanied by her attorney. Liam greeted them cautiously, with his phone's recording app discreetly running in his pocket. Karen was surprisingly cordial at first, offering what she called a reasonable solution. "We don't need to drag this into a lengthy legal battle," she said with a forced smile. "Here's what I propose. I'll pay you $200,000 up front, and you let the cottages stay. You'll even get a cut of the profits each month. It's a win-win for both of us." Her attorney nodded in agreement. "This is the best way forward for everyone. The documents we've provided prove Karen's legal claim to part of this land. Fighting this in court will be costly and time-consuming, with no guarantee of a better outcome." Liam raised an eyebrow, his voice calm but firm. "The only documents I recognize are the ones showing this land has belonged to my family for generations, and I'm not interested in making a deal with someone who built on my property without permission." Karen's smile wavered, replaced by a flash of irritation. "Fine. How about $500,000? That's more than generous, considering your land was just sitting here unused before I brought value to it." Liam stood his ground. "This isn't about money. It's about respecting what doesn't belong to you. My answer is no." Karen's attorney leaned in, his tone shifting to one of veiled threat. "I'd think carefully before rejecting this offer. A prolonged legal battle could get ugly, and who knows what might happen while we wait for the courts to decide." Liam's jaw tightened. "Is that a threat?" The attorney backpedaled, forcing a chuckle. "Of course not. Just food for thought." Liam held the door open. "You've had your say. Now leave." The tension was palpable as Karen and her attorney left, but Liam knew this encounter was only the beginning of her desperation. 2 days later, Liam returned home to find his property in chaos. Windows in his house were shattered, and the front door hung crooked on its hinges. Inside, furniture was overturned, and a few items had been destroyed, but nothing of real value was taken. It wasn't a robbery, it was intimidation. Liam immediately called the police and provided them with footage from a security camera he had discreetly installed on a tree outside. The video showed a car pulling up late at night and two masked figures exiting to vandalize the property. The car's license plate was clearly visible, giving the police a solid lead. Within hours, the authorities identified and apprehended one of the perpetrators. Under questioning, the suspect admitted he had been hired to carry out the damage, and the person who paid him was Karen, acting on the advice of her attorney. The revelation added fuel to the already mounting legal case. Karen's attempt to intimidate Liam had backfired spectacularly. Now, in addition to the civil lawsuit, she faced criminal charges for property damage, harassment, and attempted coercion. As Liam reviewed the updated legal filings with Emily, she couldn't hide her grim satisfaction. "She's finished," Emily said. "Between the forged documents, the illegal construction, and now this. There's no way Karen walks out of this without serious consequences." For the first time in weeks, Liam felt a sense of relief. The battle wasn't over, but the tide was finally turning decisively in his favor. The fallout from Karen's actions was swift and far-reaching. Her attempted intimidation had not only strengthened Liam's case, but also exposed her reckless disregard for the law. As the court hearings progressed, it became clear that Karen's position was crumbling under the weight of evidence against her. The first blow came when the judge reviewed the so-called transfer documents Karen had submitted. Forensic analysis revealed that the papers were forgeries, hastily fabricated to support her claim. Her attorney, who had been complicit in the scheme, was disbarred and faced criminal charges of his own. Karen, meanwhile, was charged with fraud and tampering with evidence, adding to her mounting legal troubles. The court ordered an immediate halt to all commercial activities on the property. The cottages, once bustling with guests, now stood empty, their cheerful exteriors a stark reminder of Karen's overreach. With the criminal charges piling up and the financial strain of the lawsuits, Karen's once confident demeanor vanished. Liam, on the other hand, began to see the first glimmers of justice. The court ruled in his favor, declaring Karen's construction illegal and ordering her to remove the cottages at her own expense. She was also required to restore the damaged land to its original state, including replanting trees and repairing the disrupted soil. The compensation for damages, legal fees, and punitive charges totaled over $2 million, a crushing blow for Karen. But the consequences didn't end there. Karen's reputation in the community was irreparably damaged. As news of the case spread, neighbors who had once admired her ambition began sharing their own grievances. Stories of her manipulative tactics and entitlement painted a clear picture of someone who had long relied on intimidation to get her way. Liam, by contrast, found himself gaining respect and support from the local community. Many neighbors reached out to express their solidarity, offering help with the restoration of his property. Local volunteers joined him to clear debris left behind by the cottages and prepare the land for replanting. One neighbor even donated seedlings from their own property to help replace the lost trees. The process of restoring the land wasn't quick, but it was rewarding. Liam worked tirelessly alongside the volunteers, slowly bringing the property back to its former glory. The sight of new trees taking root and the return of wildlife to the area filled him with a profound sense of accomplishment. Beyond the physical restoration, Liam also found a renewed sense of purpose. The experience had tested his resolve and forced him to stand firm in the face of adversity. Though it had been a long and grueling battle, he had emerged stronger and more determined to protect what was his. Karen's fate, meanwhile, served as a cautionary tale. With her finances in ruins and her reputation shattered, she was forced to sell her own home at a significant loss to cover the court-ordered damages. Rumors swirled that she had moved out of state to live with a relative, far from the community she had once tried to dominate. For Liam, the conclusion of the ordeal was more than a personal victory. It was a reminder of the importance of accountability and the power of standing up for what's right. As he sat on his porch one evening, watching the sun set over the newly restored land, he felt a deep sense of peace. The forest, quiet and resilient, seemed to echo the lessons of the past months. That justice, though sometimes slow, always prevails when one is willing to fight for it. Liam stood at the edge of his property, the early morning mist curling around the newly planted trees. The land, once marred by illegal construction and reckless intrusion, was beginning to look like its old self again. The vibrant greenery and gentle rustle of leaves felt like a triumphant return to peace. A victory not just over Karen, but over everything she had tried to take from him. The legal battle had been grueling, stretching over months and testing Liam's patience and determination. But in the end, justice prevailed. Karen's elaborate schemes to claim the land and profit from it had crumbled under the weight of truth and law. The cottages had been dismantled, leaving no trace of the unauthorized retreat. The scars they had left on the land were being healed, tree by tree, thanks to the support of Liam's neighbors and volunteers. As Liam reflected on the journey, he couldn't help but marvel at how much he had learned about himself. What had started as a confrontation over property had evolved into something much larger, a fight for legacy, integrity, and accountability. He had stood firm in the face of manipulation and intimidation, refusing to be bullied into giving up what was rightfully his. Karen's downfall served as a stark reminder to the community about the consequences of arrogance and entitlement. Her desperation to cling to a facade of success had cost her everything: her finances, her reputation, and even her home. With her attorney disbarred and criminal charges hanging over her, Karen had vanished from the area, leaving behind a legacy of shame. For Liam, the ordeal also brought unexpected rewards. The once distant neighbors had rallied around him, forming bonds of solidarity that extended beyond the boundaries of his land. They had shown him the true meaning of community, proving that even in the face of conflict, people could come together to support one another. Liam also found himself more connected to his family's legacy than ever before. His grandfather's stories about the land had always been tinged with a sense of pride and responsibility, and now Liam truly understood why. This wasn't just a piece of property, it was a part of his identity, a reminder of the values his family had instilled in him: resilience, respect, and the importance of protecting what matters most. As he walked back toward his house, Liam paused by the bubbling stream, watching the sunlight dance across the water. He felt a sense of closure and accomplishment that went beyond the restoration of the land. He had not only reclaimed his property, but had also reclaimed a part of himself: his strength, his resolve, and his connection to nature. The legal precedent set by his case gained attention beyond the local community. Stories of his battle against Karen inspired others to stand up against overreach and illegal activity. Liam even agreed to speak at a local town hall, sharing his experience and encouraging others to stay vigilant and informed about their property rights. Now, as the seasons turned and the trees he had planted began to grow, Liam looked to the future with optimism. He planned to stay on the land, continuing to nurture it and honoring the legacy passed down to him. The forest that had once been a source of conflict had become a symbol of resilience, its beauty and strength mirrored in the man who fought to protect it. On quiet evenings, Liam would sit on his porch, the air filled with the sounds of rustling leaves and chirping crickets. The land was his once more, and with every passing day, it reminded him of the simple yet profound truth he had come to understand. When you stand firm for what's right, even the toughest battles can be won, and the peace that follows is worth every struggle.